Over here playing air drums while we intro.
I feel like Krusty the Clown. Because there's just
Grandpa.
There's just so much stupid. There's so much stupid in the news and the headlines and the current events, David. There's so
it's not just with you this time.
Not just me. There's just so much stupid. There is plenty of stupid that I'm also privy to, but there's just stupid in general. But hey, we're here. It's Tuesday. We're live. Welcome to Brewing Controversy. If you somehow missed this, the other 380 times that we've said it, welcome to the inside of mine and David's relationship, where we drink craft beer, we bitch and moan about the state of the world, usually with a liberal bent. And we have some good beers on the list tonight and some good topics on the list tonight. But about this time last night, I think that's when I first started making the ongoing crusty sounds. And we will get to that in our discussion of topics this evening. But it's great to see everybody here. We are on our new time. 1 hour later, we thought it'd be nice to give people the room to actually end their fucking work day or whatever, and maybe have some dinner and like not have to have us immediately on the schedule if you are a loyal tuner inner. But it's also a little easier to do the thing because the sun is down more, which is going to be a battle we keep fighting.
Yep,
because it's going to be up longer, and so we're winning on a few fronts by doing that. If you're here, say hello. Rob's here. Hey, Rob, how's it going? And so is Olivia. Hello. If you're new here, don't hesitate to say hello as well. We know we've got a few lurkers, and you guys are welcome just as well as anyone else. We're live on YouTube and Facebook. David, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's definitely been a long week.
It's only Tuesday. Well, no.
My week doesn't ever actually end. I just have random times when I don't go into work.
Yeah. You're coming off kind of your weekend here today. And then, yeah. Chad's here. Hi, Chad. And Rob says he's in Facebook jail again, hence the YouTube. And yes, indeed, he is. I forgot which button he pushed. You told me, Rob, you pushed one of the buttons.
Just as much shit as the rest of you, and yet somehow I never end up in jail.
But you filter your visibility a little more.
I do filter my visibility a little.
You aren't nearly as apt to cuss out random strangers as I am.
No, that's normally not a thing.
Like I cussed out a postal worker yesterday in person. I mean, it's just
I did get into it with the Remember Nashville Win group the other day on Facebook.
Oh Jesus!
Because they were upset about there not being any there being fewer music studios on Music Row these days, and I literally just had to respond, "Who cares?"
Damn,
that set them the fuck off, dude.
Well, I guess it's kind of I guess it depends on how you look at it, right? Like, there are a lot of angles to that topic.
I mean, I used to live down the street from Sun Records, which is not on Music Row. Arguably the great granddaddy of all of them. So I kind of look, as a native Nashvilleian, I look at Music Row and I'm just like, I don't care. I never have. I'm pretty sure my ancestors didn't either. None of us cared. You all just hyped it to the tourists and to people who would show up and be like, I want to be a country music star. That's fine. I can do that. Hey, what I'm actually here for is to loan you the money to set up shit. And
yeah.
I mean, it's just silly, but yeah, apparently that really sets off the Nashville was so much better before crew.
I mean, I don't think I can pick a favorite on that topic, because the classics that were famous were all, in a lot of cases, traded in on different stuff. But then also there's some newer approaches to recording that had to be acknowledged. Like, people are doing shit in their house, and it's great, So I don't know if that's the hill I die on Remember Nashville When.
right? Where the recording studios are. I mean, because we people need to be honest about what Nashville is. Sells a version of itself to people coming in and to tourists, and we make money off that. That's what we do. And
that's fair.
And the one thing that I think that is different now, truly different now than it was, say, 30 years ago, is the level of churn, right? Because I'll be honest, I want out of here. Most people I know who grew up here want out of here.
I escaped.
You escaped. I mean, it's gotten crazy. It's gotten wild. I mean, trying to. It's really interesting because the cycle has now become. You get offered a job in Nashville. You think it's so fucking cool. You get paid, enough to get like a nice house. You're like, wow, that's so cheap. And then you wait 5 or 6 years, and they don't give you a raise,
right?
And things just keep on getting more expensive, and then you have to leave, right, to go find another job.
Rob's calling me a red state refugee.
You are a red state refugee. Although I don't know if Michigan is necessarily the place I would have fled to.
There's a coming election cycle that could prove all of that for naught. The guys that tried to kidnap the governor on trial as we speak. Well, we've got a new format for folks that are brand new. We do start the show now with a little bit of just roundup of what's going on. And then we're going to jump into our beer, and then we're going to jump into a pet topic, and then the big topic after more beer. So right now it's time for the hot take quickies. Now, before everybody, assumes, Lucas is a meanie and he got in the face of a postal worker. So
small.
This thing came in the mail.
This.
And it's full of horse shit. And I'm not going to waste everybody's time, but I did a dissertation on it in several local groups. But this first point, shootings increased 500% from 2015 to 2020.
So there were 2 more shootings, weren't there?
No. That's actually the actual offense in the police database is weapon firing. It is literally the pulling of triggers, not shooting at anyone. It's just rootin' tootin' bullshit gunplay. And it peaked mostly in 2020 when people were bored and paranoid. Go figure. And whoever the spineless ass baby that fucking put this shit in the mail, which is totally unclaimed, there's no organization credit, there's nothing. So this arrived, and I found it on the coffee on the dining room table, and I was like, "What the fuck is this fucking shit?" So I've been on a quest to uncover the responsible parties. I stopped by the post office yesterday, and this guy, there were only 2 people working the counter. They're understaffed. They have a sign up for now hiring, and this dude, he was like a little high strung, a little spectrumy, and he was warning everybody every 2 minutes, "We're really sorry about the wait, folks. We'll get to you as soon as we can. We're really understaffed right now." Like, there's a point at which you say something like that so much in customer service that it makes the tension in the room higher. There's like a balance to, let the first 10 people you said it to kind of cycle a little before you say it again. So he was really starting to get me like, "Dude, chill. We get it. You're understaffed. We heard you the first 38 times. So I kind of wasn't sure about him. But then the time came to ask. And what I was there to do is, apparently you can ask for the owner of a postal permit number, but you have to be the recipient with an ID to show that you match. So I had to bring the lady along as it was addressed to her. And yeah, so the first chick didn't know, and she said, "You're gonna have to ask him." And I'm like, "Oh,
oh boy, it's gonna be fun.
I'm gonna have to ask Rain Man." And so he basically told me that that's private information. I said, "Well, apparently not. Like, apparently all these professional business shipping websites that I've looked on for advice on how to navigate postal permits say that you have a database somewhere that maybe you don't have here at the counter, but someone does. I'm just trying to find out if you can tell me who to ask. Well, you can't get that information without probably a freedom of information request. I said, well, if that's what has to happen, I will do that, but I need to know who to talk to find out the answer. So if you don't know, then can you tell me where the business mail location is for the office? And he said, no, I can't tell you that. Like, how in the world do you do business if you can't tell me that? That's not public information. Like, yes, it is. I can bring a tray full of bulk mail to that office and get it processed. That's what it's for. Tell me where it is and I'll leave you alone and go over there someday. And he says, I can't tell you that. I said, well, in that case, I'm going to need to get your supervisor or your postmaster's information or their business card so that I can ask them.
Yep.
I can't give you that either. I'm sorry. What?
No.
And so he says, I can't. I said, you can and you will give me that information. No, I will not. And that was where Lucas got hot. So I dressed him down loudly, cussed a little bit, and hopped on the phone off to the side. When I came back 20 minutes later, I was voice recording on my phone. I set it right in front of him on the counter, and I looked at him, and I read his name tag. I said, hey, Thomas, I'm going to need to know like a badge number or other identifying information that I can give the Postmaster Inspector General when I make this report, if you don't mind. So he pulls his employee badge up off of his belt, barcode and all. And I'm like, do you want me to take a picture of your ID, your employee ID? I can't imagine if you think that it's private information that I shouldn't be
just
able
listening. I'm literally just resting my head on the microphone because it's that fucking stupid.
I said, all I need to do is find out like where to go to get this. Like I don't know why you're inconsistent. He said, well, if you would have waited for me to clear some people out, I could have given you some more information. I said, you didn't offer that. You said, I will not. You didn't ask me to wait. I would have gladly waited. Thomas, no one wants to get you in trouble or cost you your job, but I'm not going to leave here without the information.
Okay. All right. So this is one of the things where I get to excel at over Lucas with is the art of negotiating, especially with more stupid people than I'd like to deal with. I'm looking at you, Certainty One. Sorry, that's a Lucas and me inside joke. He's laughing on the inside. I'm crying. Right. Because I was the one who actually had to negotiate with them. But no, I mean, don't. Once you start threatening someone's job, then the conversation's over, right? I mean, like you're not going to get anything.
It was when I brought up the postal inspector that his whole attitude changed. And that's why I pointed out, I'm not in this to get you in trouble. I'm in this to get a solution. So give me the information for the boss and I'll just make it their problem. And if they can't help me, fine. We'll find a solution, even if I have to wait on a freedom of information request. But you can't stand here and tell me you're not going to give me information. And then you turn around and act like if I would have just waited. You didn't ask me to wait. You said no. And he didn't disagree with that. He just said, well, give me a minute. I'll get it for you. Like, okay, thank you. That's all. I even told him, I said, that's all you had to say, Thomas. And that's a Pulp Fiction quote you should go look up. And I really enjoyed saying that out loud because you can't necessarily stay in the post office and say, shit, Negro, that's all you had to say. But that's what was going through my head. Anyway, Olivia points out about this godforsaken fuck shit. First of all, these assholes clearly got scared. They didn't use blood red. They decided to make it purple. Which is like obviously.
Oh no! You know why it's purple. You know why it's purple.
Attempt to be nonpartisan.
No. If you
spray paint, graffiti.
No, if you look at so, purple is in the market, and I'm surprised you didn't know this. Purple is often associated with African American things in marketing.
That's a stretch. That's a stretch. You got to be really applied to put that in there because ultimately,
well, I mean, if you're a political action committee, that's the level of applied you're looking at. I mean, you're sitting there trying to figure out how to get people to to suck it up and show up and possibly wait 2 hours to cast a ballot for your candidate, or get angry about a cause that your candidate is all about. Yeah, you're going to go into what colors set you off and what are you associated
with? But you're giving these people a lot of credit. Purple is just as easily royalty. African American is just as easy, red, black, and green. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you could key in. I think they were going for blood originally and had to switch to graffiti, and the whole thing drips with racism. But anyway, I dismantled it in public. I just can't wait to find out who it is. And it definitely speaks in a way that it's setting up it's teeing something up for a potential opponent to one of our commissioners, I think. But
yeah, I mean, to hop in on your thing, there's a similar thing. Someone sent out a similar mailer in San Francisco. Apparently, Breedlove, the supervisor, is made a huge thing about, well, crime in San Francisco is rising. And there's a good number of activists pushing back saying your numbers don't make sense. Murder has gone up 200%. That means there were 2 more murders this year than there were last year.
Right.
Violent crime is way up. I'm like, yeah, during the pandemic, it was way up. And then it fell down.
Yeah.
Below what it was before the pandemic.
In reality, all this shit does is call more of our failures on the carpet. The pandemic laid our failures bare. The lack of resources or fallbacks for people led to a lot more crime and desperation. And all this kind of thing is just a fucking dog whistle for the old pearl clutchers that sit around saying, this place has gone to hell, despite the statistics clearly indicating that's not true.
What's up? Remember Nashville win?
Right. Yep. So Mark's here. Hey, Mark, good to see you. Yeah, it's, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what comes of it. I immediately took a photo of it, sent it to my commissioner, and a text message like, what is this shit? And who sent it? And he said, I haven't figured it out yet, but my money's on dark money. Like, you're probably right about that.
Yep.
Probably some Koch brothers bullshit from the depths of hell.
One of the only major American conglomerations that has not pulled out of Russia. Our favorite fucking people, really.
Well, speaking of shitty Republican small-mindedness, apparently your latest claim to fame back home is Republicans trying to marry kids again.
Jesus Christ. I mean, I fucking hell. I look at these people and I'm just like, there's no attempt to even stop and pause and be like, should I do this? No, it's literally all gas, no brake, all the time.
It's just, it's interesting that the people that are obsessed with child porn and think that we drink baby blood or whatever, they try to rewrite marriage. Like, from what I understand, they're trying to rewrite the definition of marriage in a law so that they can have a tree house that they don't have to admit gays into, so they can have their little marriage tree house, and the secret password is prepubescent fucking, because they decided to leave out any kind of definition of the age of marital consent, which is either a clear Freudian oopsie.
It was intentional.
We made it very obvious where we're at, or just proof that Republicans suck at governing and can't write laws. Or
no, I mean, it was intentional, and I'll tell you why. There is an entire movement within the anti-gay marriage crowd that is they quote unquote are so focused on family. They need to make sure that parents have ultimate control over their children, including whether or not they can marry as minors. And it's their right if they want to have their child married off as a minor, because that's their family. These are people who view, I run into this all the time. For those of you who don't know, right now, as I try and recover from pandemic unemployment, I've been working at a restaurant as a doorman, and the number of people who come in who don't count their children as people is incredible.
Really?
It's really incredible.
So you asked how many in a family of 5?
I literally had a party of 16 come in and say we have a party of 8. I'm like, what did those just follow you in here? I don't.
Can we keep them? They followed me to the pub. Can I keep them?
I mean,
Jesus.
what? And they got mad when I assumed, because I didn't see the entire party, I'm like, they meant 4 adults and 4 children, and the rest of these children are part of some other group. No, they actually meant 16 people, but they wouldn't be bothered to count their children as people. And I know that seems like a silly example, but the thing is, if you dig just like a nanometer beneath the surface, you're like,
Right.
this is how you think about children. This is how you think about them, that they're your property, that
Right.
they aren't people. And so in this anti-gay milieu that happens, the idea that parents have the right to essentially sell their children off is very prevalent. And as a consequence, a lot of Republican legislators have responded to that in wanting to make, well, it doesn't need to be 18. It can be whatever the parent says it needs to be, as long as it's over like 8. Like the thing is, in many cases, even then they're kind of like, no, there has to be a fucking line. I have to put this someplace. Jesus Christ.
See, but in Lucastopia, I would go the other way. And you know what? Now that I think about it, we have all these little like screen graphics for your stereotypical comments. I need a Lucastopia banner. I'm going to make one of those. But in Lucastopia, it would go the opposite direction. Marriage would be prohibited until you're 5. So you can figure your bullshit out before you cost everybody a bunch of fucking money and waste a bunch of time.
Well, no, a lot of states, as a consequence, and this whole debate began about 2 years ago. A lot of states as a consequence, have actually passed laws that demand no marriage until age 18. So
I mean, you'd think, but whatever. It is funny how they end up like writing the quiet part out loud into laws or would-be laws. Speaking of David's stereotypical hard feelings, so to speak, did you see the thing today about your favorite guy?
Oh, fuck that asshole. Fuck that asshole sideways.
Boner alert.
Fucking.
So Musk has basically bought into the Twitter board of directors.
It's just because he does it. He wants to own something where he thinks he won't get banned from it.
Oh,
and you know what?
God.
You know what? Ducey will still just be like, nah, I'm going to ban you. It'll be fine. I don't care that you have 12% of my stock. You can do absolutely nothing to me, you worthless piece of shit.
That dude, man, like,
that's the only reason he did it. That's the only reason he did it.
I think he just wants to like have some special claim of edgy among the edgelord population. I don't know.
No, it's because he's literally he is such a fucking moron. It is unfucking believable at every point. He didn't invent Tesla. He bought Tesla from people who built it. He didn't invent anything with regards to his space program. He took what other people were doing and bought that. He has never invented a single thing in his life. The only time that he's tried, he has failed epically. And because you got to ask the Boring Company, where's your track, dude? You sold the city of Chicago and told them that you were going to build their new subway line for half the price. Where is it, Elon? Where is it, you fucking asshole?
Well, I think the only other thing I brought to the mix for our intro is this Oklahoma legislature shit. Here's what I don't understand.
I don't even know why we bother mentioning it. It's just another in the long line of here we go again.
It's a dick measuring contest of how crazy can each legislature try to get at this point. But Senate Bill 612 in Oklahoma, performing an abortion or attempting to perform the procedure would be a felony punishable by $100,000 and maximum 10 years in prison or both. And of course, there's like only an emergency medical exception or some shit.
At least they did that, and even Texas didn't bother to do that. Which
but they still don't have the rape exception. I don't know what the Republican obsession is with people having to have and raise rape babies.
No, I mean, but here.
Well, I do know.
I posted it on my feed yesterday this is, I mean, if you have to think about how Republicans think about this, it is constantly a 12-year-old is old enough to get married, but not old enough to say that to ask for an abortion when she's raped. Right?
You think that's it? I kind of figure it's just the general women are disposable ownership property trash, and
Well,
they
they
don't
are,
give a fuck.
in their world, they are, and the crazy thing is, Republican women are just looking to be the king of the trash heap. It always shocks and awes me.
The
Queen of the trash heap.
shiniest
Let me
trash
rephrase.
in the
Actually,
bag.
honestly, I would say a lot of Republican women are probably looking to be king of the trash heap, except they don't want anyone to know that would be trans. They don't want to use that word.
I mean, it
So
really does. It does shed some interesting light on the general Old Testament tendency of these motherfuckers. Like,
it's not even properly Old Testament. I mean,
but
like
just the idea that God intended you to get pregnant from that rape, so you got to have the baby. Like, that's some Old Testament thinking.
But no, the thing is it's entirely inconsistent. The only mantra of the Republican Party is power at any price. It's one of the things that I
Yeah.
learned when I talked to Marjorie Taylor Greene's, a couple of from her campaign staff, a couple of people from her campaign staff, and she's not that crazy. They swear up and down she's not that crazy. She does it because she knows that people will pay attention, and that gives her power.
Well, she's part
The
of that.
crazier she acts, the more people look at her and the more power she has.
She's part of
And
that group of people that just want negative attention. That's been showing out a lot lately. Look at fucking the dipshit in the
yeah,
wheelchair.
yeah, like when even Crenshaw, that that galley cook, whatever, who wants to claim that he was, some sort of huge military hero. I wear an eye patch. Yeah, you do it because you just suck, dude. It's because
Well, it's Matt
you're
Gaetz
just
and
ugly without it.
Madison Cawthorn. I mean, all these guys, they just want clickbait as a lifestyle
Yeah.
in their politics. And by the way, Brian's here. He says he's here, and now we have only 2 wishes left. Oh well.
Wait, didn't Mark Compton just give us the same?
I don't know.
Y'all need to get your genie shit like straight.
No, he just. Oh, he did. I'm here. What are your other 2 wishes? Well, you guys, you ripping off each other's humor. You got to come up with new jokes. So, David,
there's a gin somewhere who's pissed.
It's time to drink more, or yeah, drink more. So the way this works now, ladies and gents, is we will start the show with a little something already, and then we'll tell you about it. So on that note, well, real quick, I do like this note. The past 6 years, these wackos have learned that they can squeeze cash out of 30% of the population. That's very, very true. Gates blows goats, also true, but they have to be underage. So, yeah.
Oh no! Before you do this, I got to be honest. So someone posted a picture of Lauren Boebert with a kid, a young goat, and someone commented, "That's the only kid her husband hasn't exposed himself to." At which point, my response was, "Bold of you to assume."
That's good. That's fair. See, that's why you don't get Facebook jailed as much. You're still fucking funny, and most of your shit is inactionable. But I have realized that fuck trash seems to be impervious to the AIs. I can use fuck trash in exchange for white trash. So we'll see. It is time to tell you about our beer, ladies and gents. And if you're drinking, please tell us what you're drinking, because that's where we're going to start tonight with what you're drinking. David, you get to go first.
I get to go first. So I have Evil Twin. Even more. It's probably supposed to be Jesus, but we're just going to call it JCS.
I mean, I don't know what it stands for, but it's something. It's part of a series, and I couldn't figure it out because they had so many damn Jesuses. Even more JCS. If I could see this label, I could tell you.
Well, I don't have a label because I got it from. I'm pouring it out of a growler. So,
right.
as milk stouts go, it's milky and stouty. There's it's hard to really stand out with a milk stout.
It really is.
They're often just really it's gonna be one thing and it's gonna be that thing. IPAs you can play around a lot with. Are you using Cascadia or Amarillo hops? What spices are you adding? Does it have a strong citrus note? Is it really piney? There's all sorts of other things you can do. When you get into a milk stout, it's really just going to come off with, that first, dark chocolate bite, and then that easy sort of gently sweet finish.
I think I might have uncovered something,
and a little bit of bitter at the end. So I mean, it's
might
not
stand for Jamaican country style.
Jamaican country style.
Maybe. I'm trying to figure out what it means. I don't know what it means. If anybody knows what it means, feel free to pipe up. Because
I mean, I feel like Jamaican country style would have a hell of a lot more ginger to it, or something.
Well, and that's the thing. I was finding I've got a
4-pack of Reed's Jamaican ginger beer in my fridge right now.
Right.
And let me tell you, that is not Canada Dry.
But you're right about that. It is hard to make that stand out or remarkable.
Yeah, it's always just going to give you like that dark chocolate with a little bit of sweet note, and with an earthy front and a little sweet finish with a bite. I think most of the time it's just about the texture, really. If we're going to talk about anything about that makes milk stout stand out, and this one, I mean, it's pretty smooth, right? You can make milk stouts like Tailgate makes a milk stout that is not as smooth. It likes to confront you,
Right.
And I think that's why it's one of their more popular stouts, because they add more peanut into it, and it wants to fight you a little bit. This isn't fighting me. It's just it's doing what it does.
Yeah.
I wanted to see what Evil Twin does, because my understanding is Evil Twin is a gypsy brewer, which is just so intriguing to me. Which, if you don't know what a gypsy brewer is, gypsy brewers don't actually have a home. They don't have a brewery set up anywhere. They hop from brewery to brewery, making stuff off of like, hey, are you using this vat? Yeah. But yeah, like, hey, are you using this vat? I'll pay you to use your vat, and I'm going to make some beer in it.
What's the new term for that? Because you can't say gypsy anymore. It's not woke enough.
I'm pretty sure the Roma don't actually give a shit, Lucas. I'm going to be honest. In general, the Roma that I've met rarely give a shit about anything other than the fact that they're really confused that I know to call them Roma.
Now that's a 12%er, and you're starting off with that first, so that's a good start. My heavy duty.
No. Is it 12%? They put down 5.6 on this label.
I'm pretty sure they're wrong.
Well, that's a thing.
It says
12%. It doesn't. At that point, I'm now more impressed because I don't taste 12.6.
I want to make sure that there's not some other option, but no, it looks like it runs around there. I mean, the only possibility is that it's regular even more Jesus is 12%. They're all, I think they lied to you.
Even right, more so Cocoa Jesus. Now that whole thing about milk stouts don't stand out, this one is now standing out in the fact that apparently it's 12%, and I don't taste 12% at all. I taste like
that could
5%.
Be part of it. I think they were grossly misinformed about that, from what I can tell. Yeah, but it's dark as hell. That's a thing.
I mean, if that's 12% and it's behaving like that, and it tastes like that, Jesus Christ, this is like a date rape drug.
Damn.
This is like GHB in a fucking glass. God damn. Like, you give someone a couple of pints of that, they ain't gonna remember shit.
Jesus.
Hi, Bubba. Remember that time? No.
Well, anyway, mine is way less interesting. I'm basic bitching a little because I was curious about this particular beer. So I'm in the Cincinnati's finest Rheingeist territory. This is the
Everything
Sun
tastes like a
Spun
champagne.
Shandy, and the reason I love citrus, I love grapefruit and orange, and that's both here. So this is just, I mean, it's a shandy. It's what you would expect, and it's also an optimistic play of welcoming warmer weather, I think, because this is definitely, you know, the summer uh, fare. It's shandy. It drink it quick while it's cold. Don't smell it too much, but it tastes great and it's
But
refreshing. Um,
does it have Rheingeist's typical overcarbonation or?
it's not as carbonated. I know what you're talking about. I've been there. It's not that far into the this is almost a seltzer.
Well,
Um,
well, no, because typically when I think of Rheingeist, I think of something that almost has a mouth feel almost like champagne.
yeah, no, it's a little more traditional shandy, and it probably is the juice that helps do that. But it's only 4.5%, and I went ahead and opened a second one because I was mowing through it like water. But it's not bad. I think
Yeah.
it's a more
This is the end of
pinchy.
this growler, which should tell you how cogent I'm going to be at the end of this fucking show.
Right.
Because I thought this was 5%.
It's a
Thank
little
you,
more
Lucas, for telling me
pinchy
different.
than typical shandy. Typical shandy has a little sweetness. This is the grapefruit helps set that back a little bit. So I like that. It's not bad at all. All right. Enough about the fun part. Let's get into the shit a little bit, shall we, sir? So, as most of you have heard by now, we are taking on a shorter pet topic that one of us wants to passionately take the soapbox on, and then we jump into our big topic of the evening. Which one of the comments that we skipped earlier? Yes, Mark, it's coming. Just wait on that one, and we'll get there. But David, you brought up obviously the Russian bear in the room. I was going to say elephant in the room, but I don't know what happens when an elephant and a bear get it on. But I'm sure Trump and Putin can
It's
tell us.
called a Republican.
Yeah. But anyway, now we're finding now that the Russians' asses have been kicked hard enough to make them pull back a little bit.
I didn't know you were going to make like subtitles for this. Jesus, dude. I don't know.
Now we're finding what they've been doing with their time. This is what apparently Russian soldiers are doing if you lie to them and say that they're going on a training exercise and they end up having to occupy territory. They conduct recreational killing of civilians.
Well, and you know, I told a couple of people, I told a number of people this when the initial offensive failed. I'm like, look at what happened during the Second Chechen War, right? How did the Russians decide? I mean, you have to remember, little tiny Chechnya managed to beat the Russians almost twice. Once, definitely. The second time, well, not so much. And the reason is the Russians just sat outside of Grozny, the erstwhile capital of Chechnya, and just destroyed it. Right? They just sat there and annihilated every last building. If it moved, fire a shell at it. Not an AK-47, fire a shell. So I knew this was coming, where they were going to be just bombing the crap out of cities to try and make them surrender, because the Russians don't have another good solution. The Russian military doctrine doesn't allow for things like a fire team or squad based combat, right? You just grab a bunch of conscripts, have them sit in place and hold a position while you shell the holy hell out of whatever you're trying to fight, and then you just tell all the conscripts, go that way and point and shoot that way. Right? That's all you have to do. You want to go that way, and you want to have your gun pointed in front of you and shoot anything that moves. It's real simple. It's real simple.
even if it's, kids or pets.
The yeah, right. Someone made a really good point about how does this happen when the Russians are just I mean, because obviously they're just sitting in Bucha. The citizens of Bucha are not in any way, shape, or form equipped to actively resist them. And so, how do we end up with this sort of behavior? And someone made a really good point, which is this is the essence of Russian maleness. Um, a lot of Ukrainians have been making this point. I don't know if it's necessarily the fairest, but it does seem to have some elements of truth to it. Which is, if you look at how Russian males uh, view themselves in the world and view themselves within their society, it's all about proving that you're not someone else's bitch. And the way you prove that you're not someone else's bitch is by having someone be your bitch. So for any Russian male, the very least you should be able to do is keep your woman as your bitch.
Okay. Yeah.
Which explains some of the behavior.
Or turn a president into your bitch, a U.S. president into your bitch. We
right. I mean,
enjoy that.
But I mean, it's also why things like homosexuality are so looked down upon, because it isn't the guy topping; it's the guy being a bottom for some other guy that they're actually disgusted with. The guy, if some guy is fucking another guy and he's on top, they're like, well, you've obviously made that man your bitch.
Right.
I mean, this is the level of thinking that we're dealing with, and it explains a lot of things about how Russian leadership works. About it's always about proving to anyone who you interact with that, well, I have other people who are lower than me,
Yeah.
right? Who I can call on to do to do me favors.
That kind of reveals it shows a through line to the conservative American thinking of,
Oh yeah,
we've got to tear other people down in order to still matter. And of course, Andrew points out that the propaganda is being lapped up by Americans, specifically the QAnon nuts. And yeah, it's rough. I do agree. I love Brian's point here. The Ukrainian civilians are booby trapping their stuff with poison. Anything goes, in my opinion, on all this.
no, I mean, if that's how this war is being fought, then it's completely valid. I think.
Well, they're also badasses. I mean, Mark points out they were just kicking around landmines on a bridge.
Well, just to clarify, the difference between Ukrainians and Russians thus far seemed to be that the Ukrainians are a hell of a lot smarter. They understood that they could kick those landmines because they were anti-tank mines that they left on the bridge, which meant that unless they walked up and stood on them,
right,
and maybe jumped around a little, they weren't going to go off. So, but even that, you're looking at them being like, what? I mean, the entire tactic of laying mines is that is to delay an enemy and force them, because most people think like that landmines are there to kill people. Ironically, landmines are not there to kill people. Landmines are there to make you deal with the landmine. So you leave landmines in spots, and then the idea is that, well, if I want to advance, I can go around the landmine and over. Now I'm in a kill box, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm in some place where you've pre-sighted your artillery, you've already set up a defense, and if I have to stop and stay and deal with the landmine, then maybe I'm also getting shelled at that point too, right? That's the idea behind landmines is to slow a aggressor down. Just leaving them out on the roadway is just fucking stupid. It like there's no doctrine that is ever invented that make sense, right?
I mean, it almost looks like they were attempting to have like a double impact of blow shit up on the bridge and take the bridge out too. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck.
But I mean, you'd have to have units standing and guarding the. I mean, again, it's supposed to slow down your enemy,
Right.
not necessarily kill them.
Right.
Probably not kill them, because most people aren't stupid to be like, nope, those are mines.
Yeah.
I mean, the level of incompetence that's displayed, and it does help to explain what's happened in Bucha, right? These are not well-trained professional soldiers who are drilled with any sort of ethic or idea of how they're supposed to conduct themselves in a combat situation, or even a non-combat situation. They are simply Russia treats all its population like conscript military.
Mm-hmm.
I line you up, I tell you to do something, and then you go do it. And maybe some of you will survive, maybe you won't. It's in the level of obedience. And this is one thing that's also been interesting.
David,
Yeah.
are you saying
He dies. He dies.
You had that queued up.
always?
I just
Until this is over, if he dies, he dies. It's staying. I'm gonna have to get a better clip though, because I don't really like the way that one works.
yeah, I mean that, and like one of the shocking things that I heard, because I mean this is how stupid they are, right? Everyone knows. I mean, hell, because the Russian military had to go do it. You don't fuck around with Chernobyl. You don't do it. You don't do it. Why? Because it irradiated fucking everything.
Or
And
any other nuclear plant, right? Like they were shooting at a nuclear plant, which is a war crime. I mean, it's the list of war crimes.
But I don't know.
War crimes
You
matter.
heard about the soldiers now dying of radiation poisoning, right?
Don't know if I'd seen it. But
Oh no, this is great. So they decided they were going to set up the Russians decided that they were going to set up a defensive position outside of Chernobyl to stop the Ukrainian advance, right? So they gave them shovels and they told them to dig in the irradiated fucking dirt and then get down in the hole surrounded by irradiated fucking dirt. They're all fucking dead now.
Just can't. Like, how stupid.
Well, no, and it turns out that part of the reason is none of these guys have ever heard of Chernobyl.
What? No, that checks out. That makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense.
I mean, you're just like something that is synonymous in the entire developed world with nuclear disaster. Apparently, somehow in Russia, they've never fucking heard of.
Propaganda, man.
It is incredible, dude.
Propaganda. Sharma's here just in time for Rage at Russia. I love it. That might need to be like a new segment until this shit is over. Also, I had to point out we still need to carve out a segment for Brian to cut in with a quick review of his particular substances that he's partaking of, which is listed here in all of its very accurate critique. We might have to do something with that. We're just gonna have to it's time for the token with Brian or something like that. And then we can like wait 3 years and say it's the Tolkien token. Have you heard about that on South Park?
What?
Oh, it's sheer fucking brilliance. After years of Token being the black kid, they just all of a sudden did an about face and revealed that his real name is Tolkien. His parents are big fans of Lord of the Rings, and they named him after J.R.R. Tolkien. And everyone else, including you, the viewer, has been a racist piece of shit for assuming that it was Token. And it is one of the best pieces of comedy writing I've ever encountered. So there we go, Brian. Token. We'll get you something going there.
But I mean,
so it's only going to get worse, right? We're going to discover worse shit.
But I mean, the thing is but because you're sitting there trying to understand why these people would do this, right? What possesses you to be like, you know what sounds like a great idea? I'm going to go beat a woman half to death, rape her, and then kill her with me and all my buddies, because that sounds like what possesses you? And it's this mentality of I have to prove to everyone else that I'm not the bottom of the male food chain. I'm more important than somebody.
Yeah, which
And,
is
and,
very,
and
very American Republican thinking. I mean, that's classic. Well, you're poor and white and destitute and unhealthy and your life's falling apart, but at least you're not a slave.
right.
You were lied to by the motherland and fooled into a false pretense for war and not even told you were going to war. But hey, at least you haven't had your hands bound and been raped and shot in the street.
Right. Now, and I'm the more concerning thing that now is how Ukraine weathers what's coming next, because right now the anticipation is that the Russians are going to try and regroup and attack Kharkiv uh with better coordination. I don't know how they plan to achieve that. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Like, everyone's like, well, they're trying to figure out a way to get better command and control. I'm like, their top of the line communication system. I mean, this came out the other day. The big 40-mile convoy that that everyone was afraid was going to launch this massive assault against Kyiv.
Mhm.
Did you hear how the Ukrainians beat it? It's fucking genius.
I've heard so many bits and pieces about it that I
So
don't know.
3 years ago, they realized the Russian commanders are selling the communications equipment off some of their vehicles. So they buy the communications equipment, which includes all the appropriate, automatic handshakes and verifications. So apparently, for 2 weeks, they sat there telling the convoy like they were their commanders, right? That more fuel was coming, more food was coming, reinforcements were coming, and they just made them sit there for 2 weeks,
It's
wondering why
beautiful.
reinforcements hadn't come.
That's just beautiful. That's between that and
What?
the release of Russian warship "Go Fuck Yourself" guy, and he got a medal, and good for him. It's one of the greatest military awards ever given, in my opinion.
Right?
There's always some fun news, and these guys,
Tell
guys and
that
girls,
sissy
they've got
Marcon
a
to
pretty
get a Legion of
kick-ass.
Honor polished up for him.
Yeah, right. They've got a pretty kick-ass, diverse
No,
force.
I
But
apologize. That was wrong of me. Marcon is not a sissy. If you are a sissy, you give your daddy Dom a hug from me. You are not Marcon.
they really do have a shining example, and I love what Mark said a few minutes ago. The Ukrainians right now are who the right-wing cosplatriots, which is a beautiful word, wish they could be, and that's so true. Smart and ballsy and the whole 9 yards.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I agree, Brian. If only the Ukrainians had A-10s
No, let's
or
stop with the A10 bullshit.
anything else that would be helpful, like closed airspace.
At this point, I think after Buka, we need. I understood when Biden and NATO were on the fence about. The thing is, you can look at that situation and say, I can understand where you're coming from about I don't want to engage directly with the Russians. After Buka, fuck that noise, man. Put the F-35 on the fucking runway in Krakow, get it fueled up, armed up, and send it to go do combat air patrol over Kyiv.
Yeah.
Be like, here you go, Ivan. I'm right here. Let's fucking dance. Because apparently, this group of fucking sunflower farmers with nothing but slings and fucking arrows is able to take you down. I just want to see how many aces I can make in a single 5-minute period with whatever you're going to send at me. I'm not worried about my safety. I really just want to figure out exactly how much of my dick I can stick in your ear before you realize you're that fucked.
And you're not wrong. It's there's a lot, right? Like,
but I just want to point out, the
between.
Russians have a special plane that they built called the Raptor Killer, right? Because they were going to beat the F-22 Raptor, right? They're like, oh yeah, this could, like we can make MiGs just as good.
Whatever.
Apparently, your Su-45s, your badass, strike fighters, are defeated by people dragging your shit away with tractors. I want to point this out.
Right.
You have now made it clear to the rest of Europe that the apex predator of all creation is not the Terminator or the AI. It's the Ukrainian fucking tractor.
Good point. That's a very good point. I'm ready to rip the Band-Aid off, man.
I think we got it. I mean, I understand where the Ukrainians like we don't need troops, but you know what? I want to.
We're gonna be old people when this is over if we don't.
And it needs to be more. It needs to be, hey, Ukraine, I just had about 10, 20 Patriot missile systems fall off the back of the truck somewhere at the Polish border. Have fun, enjoy. This will be a hell of a lot easier than that Ruski shit you all been playing around with. Watch what this can do, because not only is it going to blow every last Russian fighter out of the sky, then it's going to make you coffee and suck your dick.
Well, speaking of coffee, how's that beer coming?
It's fine.
Because you know what? It's that time. It's time for another round, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, you start, because I have to unlock my beer. Because
that's right.
The Italians don't want you to get at the beer fucking easy, apparently.
Yeah, you're sealed. So a funny thing happened yesterday. We were at the grocery store. And by grocery store, I mean we were at Meijer, which is, for those that don't live in the Midwest, it's like Walmart if they had a soul and some kind of dignity for their workers. So I, looking around at the beer, picked up the Rheingeist, and tried to figure out like what else is here that I should try. And I actually thought, I got other stuff I could review and talk about. I was just looking along the shelf and I saw this. And I was like, is that a $40 4-pack of beer?
It's a utopia.
So I decided,
Mr. I get paid decent.
So I got this guy, the Dogfish Head Utopia's Barrel Aged Worldwide Stout. Now, it's really cool looking. It is a $10 bottle of beer, and I need to look this up when it was released.
I'll be right back. I need to wash this out before I put this beer in.
Oh, fair enough. So I'm gonna have to find out how long this has been sitting around, because the bottom of the 4-pack had a little bit of like warehouse funk, like that dusty, dark dust bunny kind of funk. And then the bottles were a little dusty. So I feel like it's been out for a minute, and I lucked out in finding some that they had left. As a barrel-aged fan, I really couldn't pass it up. I couldn't, not. So check this bottle out. It's really pretty. It's got copper metallic. It won't focus. There. Whoop, maybe not. Okay. Oh, no. There it is. Sort of. Kind of a coppery, shiny, and then it's got this nice kind of raised ink vibe. I'm not sure if I understand the bright green top, unless that's they might all be bright green tops, now that I think about it. Are they all bright green tops for Dogfish?
I think so.
It seems sudden among all this other design,
right? No, not like that. I think they just did that as a design choice, because Dogfish Head regularly doesn't make any fucking sense.
That's fair.
Lucas has had to learn that I am not a big fan of Dogfish Head as a brewer.
Yeah, I sent him a photo of this yesterday. I was like, check this shit out. I'm gonna splurge. And And then he was like, "Good luck." I'm like, "What do you mean, good luck? What the fuck is wrong with you? You think that, I've had plenty of barrel aged. Why are you saying good luck? What the fuck? I'm not a rookie."
Dogfish Head.
And then I found out David does not have a lot of love for the Dogfish Head. And
Listen, the 90-minute IPA should have been a fucking thing of beauty, and it's not, and I blame them very strongly for it.
well,
if you want to be Sammy Klaus, go be Sammy Klaus. Don't be half-assed Sammy Klaus.
fair. So it's open. Woo, buddy.
Yep.
So the other thing that I found attractive about this beer and interesting was this is a 17.3%er. As far as I'm aware, it may very well be literally scraped off the lining of barrels. For
You know what? With Dogfish Head, I wouldn't put it past them.
Here we go.
They might have just mulched wood. Yep. That's what I thought.
Woo. Yeah. You could eat a side of barrel staves and wash them down with this, and it would be about right. I don't dislike it by any stretch of the imagination, but this Wolfman's got nards. That's all I got to say about that. Damn. Oh boy.
Is it one of those situations where they were supposed to take the whiskey out of the barrel before they put the beer in it?
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be.
Yeah.
There's probably an old fashioned to be made with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's great. It's good. And I've no, yeah, like, but in that way, like, you got to want that strong barrel aged beer. This is strong as fuck.
No, but there's strong barrel aged, and then there's whiskey that isn't whiskey.
It's not that far along. I think it's as far up against that wall as you could get before you're glory holing it. It's always fun when I can tell.
I feel about that analogy.
It's always fun when I can tell that you thought I was just going to go right along with normal conversation, and then your brain catches up to what you think you heard. Sharma wants to know how it's going. You haven't missed any shenanigans. They're happening right now because glory holes were just deployed in the conversation.
Apparently, whiskey glory hole is now a way of describing beer.
I'll tell you what, if you need to drink a beer that's going to get you laid down at the end of the day, this is your joint. I also bought vanilla ice cream, knowing that this would have to be a float in the future, and I think that's going to be the next way I try this beer.
That's fair.
Well, I've read some reviews and talked to a few people that have said that this is the blackest, darkest fucking thing they've ever seen. So you do your beer. I'm going to grab a glass to put it in so we can see the color.
Fair enough. All right.
And good luck. I'm going to let him say all this Italian shit on his own.
Right. Hi. Baladin Independente Italian Farm Brewery. So there's not a lot of English on this. I'm going to be honest. This was $2 at the store because no one wanted to buy this stuff. And
no one knew what the fuck it was.
Right? No one knew what the hell it was. And I took a gamble on it because I'm like, someone took some time, and it definitely looks like a Belgian. And even a shitty Belgian is better than, in most cases, than not a Belgian. So I will take a stab at it. So I've actually had this before. Now, the complaint was that it hadn't aged well. I gotta be honest. It's got so many spices in there, I can't tell a fucking difference. It just tastes good. It has a lot of citrus notes in it. and a lot of, I'm going to call that, yeah, it's got a little, it's got a hint of, I'm going to call that orange blossom, which is what I'm pretty sure it is. Pretty sure they've got a little bit of orange blossom in there that's making it give it that citrus flavor and a little bit of sweetness. And then on top of that, I think they've got a little bit of nutmeg, just like a hair of nutmeg, maybe mace. It's either nutmeg or mace, and then a little bit of cinnamon buried somewhere in there. So like you'd think it tastes Christmassy, but with the citrus coming in on top of it, it just it's that very light. So like the spices
Very
just give it a little-
farmhousey, right?
Yeah, it's very farmhousey.
Yeah.
But it's
Show
super
that
citrusy.
color off. Show the color off. Oh yeah, yeah. That
Yeah, I mean it's super
you
citrusy,
almost
even
would
for
call
Belgium.
that from across the room.
What?
You can almost point to that across the room and say that's a farmhouse ale right there.
Yeah, I mean it's super Belgian-y. It's super farmhouse ale, but ironically made by Italians. You know, and I will drink this in honor of the fact that apparently Italy has agreed to be a guarantor of Ukrainian security at this point, which I'm just like, yes,
Okay.
the valiant Italian military.
I'd pay money to see a bunch of Italian mamas with rolling pins beating the shit out of some Russian troops. Did you show the bottle? The bottle was kind of cool.
Yeah, the bottle is really cool. It's. I mean, again, this is where I'm like, hey, that's a Belgian. I don't understand their graphics department.
I'm not sure what the wine. I think the wine part might be the sub brand. We were struggling in a lot of ways. For instance, the description in Untapped is all in Italian, so I don't even get to read that off and make it.
The bottle has.
There's more, David.
You can't see, the bottle has this like built-in Birra Baladin.
I found more. There's an English version at the bottom.
Oh, is there?
Yes, founded as a brew pub in 1996 in Pioso, a small village in Piedmont, by the brewmaster Teo Musso. Immediately,
Piedmont makes sense.
Huh? What?
Huh? At least in terms of making beer, Piedmont makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Piedmont is in northwestern Italy, right on the French border.
Okay.
Towards Switzerland.
In 2016, the brewery was inaugurated, equipped with modern technologies. They're talking more about the company. Yeah, not a lot about the beer here, but it's really, I mean, it's a very unique. That might be the most unique thing that you've brought on here,
right? I mean, it was super odd, and I'm sure it was some distributor being like, "Guys, you have no fucking clue what I got here. Neither do I. So how about you just take this off my fucking hands?"
Yeah, right. Fire sale.
And you know, and I can see where some of the guys at the store were like, well, if we caught it more in its prime, that it would have a lot more, maybe it would have a lot more carbonation. But I mean, the cork popped pretty solid.
Yeah.
So I'm not displeased with this. And you know, I have no idea how much alcohol it has. I'm gonna be honest. I have no 5.8. They did apparently label it for the American market. So
well, I would point out that might age pretty well, but that's something I did like about this, that the label says ages well. Like they encourage you to stash this shit.
See, I don't see this. They you know, when they tried that, and I'll be honest, I can see where they're like, this didn't age well, because for where I would expect the carbonation to be on this to what it is.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they're sealing these as well as they should, or either that or they're not. So these are bottle conditioned, which means that they bottle them and they let the yeast work on it a little bit. It could be that their strain of yeast just isn't up to the task.
Gotcha.
Of surviving in 5.8. You know, it may give off some great flavors, but it's not up to the task of surviving in 5.8. So it's killing the fermentation process. Yes, I know how this works. I like beer. I also know how it's made. So it's not maybe the yeast isn't surviving in the bottle as long. I mean, it does have a little bit of sediment, but not a lot. I could see maybe a little where a little of the yeast used to be.
Well, David, I've made a discovery. I told you I was going to get a glass.
Uh-huh.
I would like to share with you the eclipse that I've managed to recreate.
Oh yeah. I can see light through there.
I mean, a tiny dot. That is, and you know I've been waiting all night to say it, black as hail. That is a dark ass glass of beer.
That is a dark ass beer. Yeah. I think maybe this would benefit from them using a different strain of yeast that could survive at a little bit higher alcohol and continue fermenting the beer. I feel like that's maybe what went wrong when they were like, it isn't as good as it could be. I think it's a very solid, drinkable beer, especially as it gets warmer. I would love it if they sent more of this shit.
There you go.
And I could buy
Make
it
a
for
request.
I could buy it for $2 a bottle. I'm not paying probably what they want for it for Italian fucking random Piedmontese beer. I'll pay you $2 for it. Yep, I'll do that. But yeah,
Well,
I think that's what happened here is they need to get a different yeast that's going to survive a little bit longer and get that carbonation really in there.
Stay tuned, man. Maybe it's a new one to follow.
Now I'm gonna play with all the wax that they seal it in. Sorry, like
No,
I'm literally like over here like trying like not to like have my little like peeling fetish of like peeling off all the wax on the bottle.
Well, earlier Mark mentioned that he was surprised I wasn't talking about it, but I will now because tonight we're going to talk about this reality.
Oh yeah,
policing in America is still broken. So yesterday, I get to the end of the day, flipping through YouTube. I had a decently busy day doing some stuff. The post office thing, obviously, and then some grocery shopping, as we know. But work before that, so I didn't get the chance to stay on top of the headlines. So I flipping through YouTube yesterday evening, and there are all the little local news clips. And there's one about a Grand Rapids police involved shooting. Like, what? How did I not? How was this not shoved right in front of me? Shame on you, social media algorithms, for having no idea who I am anymore. So then I go looking at the whole thing and digging up all the information. And so the basic idea is, we've got a brand new chief, and this is how he gets to start his first few weeks. Is to have to deal with one of these Yahoo fuckboy cowboy fucking dipshit cops. 26. I mean, he fits the profile so far. 26-year-old cop, been on the force for a few years. Stops a guy. Now, I have so many problems with this. So he stops a guy because the license plate doesn't match the car.
Yep.
The vehicle's not stolen per se. The license plate doesn't match. Now, I'm already starting off pissed because they've been telling me since I got here last summer, oh, we're short-staffed. We don't have enough people in the traffic unit to be able to make a difference on the reckless driving. And I don't know how many people have been able to hear it through the microphone, but it's about 50 degrees out, which around here is, throw on a bikini. And every fucking motorcycle in this entire fucking city has driven down this street while we've been on live. And a lot of them behave themselves, but there is a small group of the little tiny, like, circus fucking motorcycle crowd that likes to zip around and take over intersections and fuck with the whole of society. And they basically pwn the cops daily in the good weather around here. And it's just goddamn embarrassing. So they say that they can't do anything about all that shit, but they've got the time and energy to follow people around to see if their license plates match, which also means they had to have been profiling to pick out a target.
Well, and I'm going to stop you right there. So what typically happens is this: is you have a situation in which a cop has decided that they already are suspicious of someone, but they can't just, I have a hunch doesn't count,
Yeah, right.
right? Because the law says you have to have reasonable cause to stop them. So then it becomes, all right, now I'm on a search for a reasonable cause.
Yep. Yeah. So they found out the license plate didn't match, and the dude pulls him over, and the guy like apparently cooperates for a minute. It's a young black dude. His name now, it's been released, is Patrick Leoya, 26 years old. Maybe the cop was 28. Anyway, whatever. A couple young guys in their 20s that shouldn't be on opposite sides of anything, but they are. So the dude like hangs out for a minute for the traffic stop, but then he bolts. And this officer, working alone, no partner, decides that the proper choice here is to leave the vehicle and the passenger and chase this guy that wants to run away. And like, I don't understand the strategy of that. Like, you don't need to chase him. You have the vehicle he was driving and the person you can pressure to sell him out. You will know where he lives within an hour.
Right.
But instead, this fucking superhero wannabe decides to wrestle with this guy in somebody's front yard. And according to bystanders, for a minute or two, he wrestles with him. He tries the taser and it doesn't work. And we don't have a lot of details on how exactly he decided to shoot the guy. So there's so much wrong with it. And then they do their press conference and they they point out that it's all been turned over to the Michigan State Police to be investigated. Now, of course, we're going to get into all this, but this is yet more of the police investigating the police. I brought a couple of visual aids because anytime you say Michigan State Police, I start to laugh unreasonably. And it's because they have these comically gigantic lights.
I'm going to stop you just real fast.
This is like some Mayberry shit going on.
Remember when I told you that there was some yeast at the bottom of that bottle?
Yeah.
Yeah. It all just flaked off into my beer.
Nice.
All right, now I see where we had a problem with this.
Let it settle. So these big fucking comical lights on these yahoos apparently don't protect them from being hit, and they don't help them be seen. But yeah, so anytime you bring up Michigan State Police, I automatically start laughing. They're supposed to investigate this, and I have a problem with that because there's no way in fuck that these people are going to put the screws to their brothers in service. It's a mess. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. There's a high likelihood that I'll be late or substitute hosted next week because I'm going to probably have to go speak to the commission on it. All right. Show us what you got.
Oh, dude, like
because we cannot talk about cops until we've settled your yeast.
It's intense, dude. Look at that shit.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That is nasty.
All right, Earth to David. Pull your nose out of your yeast. Let's talk about these fucking.
Sorry, yeah, that was just awful. I'm still gonna try. I'm not gonna lie. I'm still gonna try and drink it, but that was horrifying to watch happen.
Let it settle. It'll be okay. Just don't drink the very bottom of it.
Oh my god. Jesus.
So, David, this is just another example. You were talking to me earlier this week about the fucking mess of methodologies that led to Breonna Taylor shooting and how the rest of the country is. The rest of the police departments in the country have looked at Louisville's miserable failure and said, hey, let's do some of that. That probably works. And there's just so much not getting fixed, right?
No, I mean, which is why I made you put up a list for today.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to, I don't know if you want to go right into that or if you.
Do it.
All right.
Do it.
So the first stack of information here is the shit that we were all told would be happening by various leaders or various police that have supposedly committed to change. And I'm going to let you take it from there, man.
Yeah. So I mean, like it's real fucking simple. Congress was supposed to pass a police reform bill. Didn't happen. Um, there's no coordinated national oversight of local police. No national register for of police to prevent rehires of bad cops, because we keep on seeing, some cop from San Francisco hop over to Lower Bucksnort, uh, Arizona, and get trigger happy, and everyone in Lower Bucksnort, Arizona, should have known that that cop that they got from San Francisco was a trigger happy uh, kill bunny, and no universal end to qualified immunity. I say universal end because Colorado has actually been leading the charge on this. Colorado has ended qualified immunity for cops. They also, in Denver, have made a big effort to refocus resources from uh, police to social service units that are very expressly trained for high stress, high. I'll go ahead and say danger, high stress, high danger environments where they're probably going to be the better answer than a bunch of guys with badges and guns.
Right.
Um,
Well, and a whole
and
bunch of this is like easy, low hanging fruit. The only real hang up being the infinite presence of the crooked police unions for the
well, I
most
mean,
part.
in reality, so Denver basically set up. I'm going to use Denver as an example because somehow, of all the fucking people, Denver is the one leading the charge on this. Denver turned around and set up, uh, and they look like ambulances, right? They're designed to look like kind of, you know, Mercedes ambulances, and they are there to deal with with crisis situations where people are obviously in mental distress, and you send mental health professionals
Mhm.
and medical professionals to deal with the situation rather than the police, and it's worked pretty damn good thus far.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to come back to this warrior training bullshit, because I mean, if we have to look at one thing that I would argue is probably pushing, like why would he chase that guy? You asked that question. Why would he chase that guy? Why was he going to wrestle with him? Why was he going to do this? It's that warrior training bullshit
Yeah.
that the police unions keep on pushing. Like we're gonna teach you how to be a sheepdog among sheep, fighting wolves. I mean that's a quote that the cops keep on telling themselves.
Yeah.
You are a shepherd among wolves protecting sheep, and they keep on repeating it. And I think a lot of us look around and be like, "Are you sure you're not the wolves?"
Right.
Because
Right.
we're no longer really fucking sure that you aren't the wolves.
Well, and they are. I mean, it's really broken and really vicious, and it's broken all the way back to its roots. There needs to be a
Oh yeah.
complete reinvention of the approach. And the worst part is that the nicest guy today can end up being the next dipshit that decides to wrestle somebody in somebody's front yard and shoots them the
Well,
next day.
and I want to come back to that first thing you said. Hit the time machine.
Oh, right.
Uh,
Yep.
hit the
Yep.
time machine.
It's
Um,
time to jump in David's time machine for a little history lesson.
so, we have to look at the idea of why police were set up in the first place, right? Because we need to acknowledge that police are a relatively new invention. Really, only until the 19th century did we get anything that we would understand currently as police anywhere. And as a consequence, every country, especially in the Western world, set up their police departments a little bit differently. If you look at England, and they did so for different reasons. Like if you look at England, they basically do have a national police force. It's essentially all run through Scotland Yard in London. And they did this for various reasons. If you look at France, they have a very strong national police force, which is the gendarmerie. which I would argue part of the problem that we're having right now with our police force is that we don't have any separation between a gendarmerie and a police force, and the French do. So do the Spanish. So do a lot of other Romance language speaking countries, and it has to do with how their idea of a police force evolved. Right, ours evolved, as most do, off a very clear idea, which is powerful people wanted people without power to not kill them and not steal their shit. Very simple. The problem was
the whole slave patrol piece of it too.
Well, I'm getting to that. That includes not steal your shit, which includes
Right.
not stealing yourself.
Right.
But I mean,
not absconding with yourself as the property.
right? Yes. But in the North, you also got police. Police, and again, that was in many cases the wealthy looking for someone to police their workers, right? To stop their workers from doing untoward things to them. The problem is, at least in the U.S., we never evolved truly beyond these points, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would very much strongly argue we never truly evolved beyond the slave patrols. We never truly evolved beyond the anti-striker labor enforcement patrols of the Northeast.
Right.
We've stayed in these modes simply because we've never had any concept of a national police force. And some people want to point to the FBI, and I want to make a very clear point about the FBI not being a national police force. If the FBI shows up at your door and says, or shows up outside your window, right? Let's say you're driving along, and somebody with an FBI badge wants you to roll down your window. Don't do it. Because they're not actually FBI. Because the FBI doesn't pull anyone the fuck over.
Right.
You're about to get ganked on the side of the road.
Yeah.
I mean, it's we don't have anything in America that relates to a national police force.
Mm-hmm.
We never have. And as a consequence, we have all these local concerns building local police forces with local power issues. And that's one of the really cool things that many European countries have actually overcome because of national police services is it's not about local power issues. It's about enforcement of the law, or at the very least of what you should expect from a police force, enforcement of the law. I think the problem in America is that we have such a balkanized idea of what police are supposed to do and what they're there to do and why they're established in the first place. I mean, Kansas City police were established for very different reasons than, say, the San Francisco police or the Seattle police or, the Flagstaff, Arizona police, right? They're all established for very different reasons. And the problem is we don't have any core idea of what the fuck police are supposed to do. So we have a history that's really screwing things up, and we don't have a core idea of what the hell we want police to do.
Kind of a catch-all.
Place to place.
It's a catch-all for whatever shit that we don't have an agency for, which is why creating agencies for that could help with it in a lot of ways.
But I mean, it's one of the reasons I firmly believe that we have to look at policing in America and burn it all the fuck down to the ground. And I'm not saying this. I think this is actually the least radical proposal that should work, that actually should be in play, which is, no, I need to take the entire idea of how I police Nashville, how I police Grand Rapids, how I police Minneapolis, a place in Minnesota where George Floyd got it.
Minneapolis.
St. Paul's bigger cousin.
The Twin Cities. The Princetown.
Oh, that's right. It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we need to dismantle the entire idea of because we don't have
different kind of purple rain.
Okay. Right. We don't know what we want police to do.
Right.
And what they're doing right now stems out of a really bad history of why we established them in the first place.
Well, I would say
In the South, it's about
thinking
slave
people.
patrols. In the North, it's about crushing unions and oppressing workers. In the West, it's about, in many cases, about a variety of things. It could be killing Mexicans and Indians. It could be, enforcing federal control.
Well, thinking people have trouble with that. The brainwashed nationalistic dumb fucks, aka also the old people, they just know that they want the police to keep all the things that make them clutch their pearls at bay.
Right. But they don't even know what those are.
Yeah, they have
That's the
vague
problem.
ideas, but it's all mythological for the most part.
Right.
So going back to this list, yeah, none of this shit's really gotten done, and it really pisses me off. And it plays, any case like what we're dealing with here as of yesterday plays right into this, right? Like police reform could handle some of these problems, like the whole concept that you would give a shit if someone runs away when you have their car and their passenger to work from. You would have universal standards instead of the explanation that Chief Winstrom was giving was, well, it's pretty standard to try to give a foot pursuit. Well, maybe it shouldn't be. I mean, unless they were a loony with a brazen display of weaponry, what harm is it going to do to call 8 or 10 other units and search for them in a few minutes?
Yeah, I mean, what was he? The question is, did he have a gun?
We don't yet know.
Did he?
There's
I mean,
a lot of
but not. I want to be very clear. Not did he have a gun? Did he have a gun and he pointed it at somebody?
We don't know any of that yet, and they're working on the footage coming out. And there's some bullshit where this cop. This really pisses me off, David. Apparently, I don't know if it's a national standard or Grand Rapids. This fucking guy has 72 hours to speak with the investigating team, the Michigan State Police. They're going to let the 72 hours happen before they work on releasing the footage or anything. And here's the problem I have with that. Fuck you and fuck that, you fucking pigs. Because if I am in a situation where I'm in a confrontation or duress, I am expected to deal with it right then. The cops get to lay back for 72 hours and get their story straight and breathe deep and sleep a couple nights. Fuck that. If you or me gets in trouble and
get the story straight is the entire purpose of it. Get the story straight is the entire purpose of the 72 hours.
But like if you or me says something off the cuff in the presence of law enforcement that incriminates ourselves, we're just fucked.
Yep.
They get to sit around for 72 hours and fucking write a script.
Yep.
Goddamn bullshit. So, the coordinated oversight of police, absolutely. I do not understand why that hasn't happened in the past already. Yeah. It's part of my heavy-handed federal approach to so many things anyway. The National Register should have been an easy, low-hanging fruit. What the fuck? Every single person in their professional life stands a chance to get blackballed inside their professional bubble, except these motherfuckers.
Right.
The warrior training you've knocked out of the park. Universal end to qualified immunity. I'm down with that. I think there's definitely some controversial space there, but I think at the end of the day, it can go away.
Yeah.
And then a refocus on services. But you pointed out many, many times, and we've got that list here too. That's just the beginning. Here's the shit we really need.
Right. I mean, if we could separate, like the first thing on the list is, we've got to have local prosecutors and local police not dependent on one another for outcomes, right? Because right now, the way it's working out is the police have all the power, because since the local prosecutor is elected and the police fucking aren't, the police chief isn't, right? No one's electing the police chief. No one's electing the lieutenants at the stations. No one's doing any of that. The police end up having all the power over whether or not the prosecutor gets to keep their job. So there has to be some level of separation in how these two organizations are doing their job. And leading into the next point, I think that starts with the demilitarization of police. Right? If police aren't acting like an occupation force in neighborhoods and constantly thinking that they're under fire, under threat, that they're going to be attacked all the time, that they're afraid all the time, that they're essentially thinking of themselves as an occupier,
Yep.
then it begins to back off that need for the police, for the prosecutor to constantly punish people to remove the threat to the police or to prove that the police are doing their job.
Well,
Um,
and I want to throw two things in the mix there, David. The prosecutor thing, it really pisses me off when I see the trend of people with backgrounds as police or law enforcement later running for DAs and stuff. I think we should prohibit that shit. That cross pollination is garbage.
No, and it is. I mean, because again, like, and most people who listen to us during the George Floyd protests will probably hear my take on this, which is, personally, I think that investigation of crimes has to belong strictly to the district attorney's office.
Yep.
So instead of having police detectives, you have detectives from the prosecutor's office. And police should be concerning themselves with peace enforcement and peacekeeping, which is, we'll get more into that at the end of this list. But that if the DA's office has an active hand in investigating the facts of a crime, then they're in a better position to determine whether or not they want to actually prosecute that crime. Right now, they have police detectives coming to them and saying, "Why aren't you prosecuting this?" Well, because you didn't give me enough evidence. Well, of course I did. Well, again, now you have two agencies competing with one another. One that thinks that they're completely justified in handing someone, something written illegibly in pig shit and demanding that the DA prosecute it. And the DA saying, "I don't even know what the fuck this guy did. Did he piss in your coffee? I mean, he might have pissed in your coffee, as far as I can tell."
You're presenting the good part. If we keep allowing ex cops to run for DAs, they're just buffering for the cops. I was in a case where the DA was the buddy with the cops, and I got fucked.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
I'm not okay with that. But the demilitarization thing, I think that connects to the community police concept. I feel like a guy like this yesterday. I feel like he might not have run if he felt like the cop involved knew shit about the neighborhood. If you're a young black man, you see a young white man that clearly is out of his goddamn element. He's clearly a fish out of water. I'm thinking you'd be more likely to run because he doesn't know shit. He doesn't know that neighborhood. He doesn't know how to get around. He doesn't know where you're going to hide. He has no fucking idea what you're going to do. But if he's a guy that you happen to see around, you feel like maybe he knows some shit about the alleys and the lay of the land, maybe you wouldn't be as ballsy to run away from him. I don't know. We touched on this in the previous list, additional resources dedicated to social services in lieu of police response. I mean, that kind of goes back to that mailer I started off with tonight, right? Like highlighting the lack of social services in the spike of crime.
well, because, and the thing is, we know that every time we introduce social services, crime goes down, right? When we introduce social services, violent and all sorts of other crime goes down. And I want to say part of the problem is that the only conversation that we're having, and there was you mentioned the Breonna Taylor situation earlier, which is why I sent you that article, which is all this stems out of this system that was established in the early 90s called CompuStat, right? Where the police were going to start keeping records of crime and assigning them to locations and people. And by this quote unquote science, and I say this because on the surface, it sounds like this is scientific and useful until you see how police used it, which was not scientific and useful. It was just simply, "Oh, well, the computer told us that you're bad, so I decided that you're bad," without taking into account any other data points that are present in front of you, right? Like I can be sitting here with my fucking beer and saying, well, apparently it's got a lot of sediment in it. I don't know. Like maybe like maybe it's spoiled. Well, I know it's not spoiled because I've had a couple of drinks. But if I was just randomly walking along and I came up with this beer, like, oh, someone's done something terrible to this fucking beer. It's got all this stuff, all this junk at the bottom. Then I might react differently, even though I don't have all the facts.
Right.
Which is what police have been doing, right? Police have been used CompuStat to not have all the facts, but justify making snap decisions, often to the detriment of many of the people they were supposed to be policing, based off those quote unquote scientific observations.
Well, you also point out here the police certification. I find that to be fascinating. I also think it's hot dog shit that's not a thing, because there's so many other places that you can't work unless you have a common certification that's recognized across state lines.
Right? You can't be a lawyer, you can't be a doctor, you can't be an accountant, you can't
be a fucking project manager, for fuck's sake.
It's insanity that there is no national police certification. And I qualified that with, I can see, Pegram, Tennessee, and it's 2 cops. And Pegram saying, I don't know how to find a cop with police certification. Okay, that's fine, Pegram. But if you get sued because Barney Fife decided that today was the day he was going to kill a black man and enjoy doing it, your litigation insurance that you pay for isn't going to cover it. You owe the family of the decedent all the money without any coverage. And I think that's I think that's also fair for major cities. This is more pointed at major cities, right? If you're Chicago and you're regularly having to pay out settlements, if you're LA and you're regularly having to pay out settlements, you rely on that litigation insurance, right? You rely on the fact that, all right, I'll settle and the insurance company will pay, right? What I owe. So I'm not, people point out like, oh, taxpayers are on the hook for that 125,000, 20 or 125 million settlement. They aren't actually. They're on the hook for a higher premium on their litigation insurance, which normally, like a city, like for something like a $10 million or $60 million settlement, the city is probably on the hook for a third to half, but the insurance company is on the hook for the rest.
That really takes the wind out of one of my favorite sales, which is to imagine that these departments or these municipalities are getting bankrupted by their fuck ups. And I like the idea that something would be tied to the reality that they could get bankrupted by their fuck ups.
Right? To say, like, if you don't hire police that are certified, then you are not eligible. Then the insurance company can come back and look at you and say, nope, we don't owe you a dime. Your premiums, I'm sitting on them. I'm wiping my ass with your Benjamins, and I'm liking it.
Now, I'm going to get you into this last point so that I can put you on screen, because I know how fucking passionate you are on this one. But a refocus of police to peacekeeping rather than peace enforcement. And with that, sir, we all know that you have a soapbox to whip out, because this is a big one for you, and it's not wrong.
Because so for those of you who haven't heard this spiel from me, it's real simple. There's a difference between peacekeeping and peace enforcement. Right now, the problem that we have in American policing is that it's based on peace enforcement. What is peace enforcement, you ask? Peace enforcement is I use force to compel a behavior, right? I don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to threaten or hurt you until you do the thing that I want you to do. Peacekeeping, on the other hand, says, okay, you're doing something I don't want you to do. What can I do to entice you without intimidation or the use of violence to not do that? And when I say entice, I mean, hey, how are you doing? Looks like you've had a little bit too much to drink. You know what? Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tow your car, and you're going to have to pay for that. But I'm going to put you in a cab because you're not hurting anyone. You're parked on the side of the road, and you're drunk, but uh, you don't need to go to jail, right? You're not hurting anyone. I can resolve this situation without causing you harm beyond a financial penalty. Or let's do this a different way. Hey, you're dealing, you have 2 ounces of pot on you. That's within the legal limit. I could fine you with this. What I'm going to ask you to do is let's try and find a more constructive way for you to enjoy your herb in a way that doesn't have to involve me. Right.
Right.
Like, because that's actually an issue where I work is like people smoking on the sidewalk. Like you walk outside and you're just like, yep.
You talking about employees or customers?
Customers.
Interesting.
I once had one guy seriously light up in front of the sign. And like when I say light up, I don't mean just like a normal joint. I mean, he had something out of a cartoon show, dude. Like this thing,
it was the bluntiest of blunts.
This was the bluntiest of blunt. Like, like you're just looking at the. Is that a cigar? No, that's not a cigar. Oh, that is a very, very, very large blunt.
Sir, did you know that your donkey dick is on fire?
On that shit. But and I had to ask him, like, dude, come on, give me a break.
It's funny that it's so open there, based mostly, I guess, on Metro saying, hey, you know what, we're not going to fuck with this if you're just doing your thing. Here, with it being legal, it's like that conversation that you were having would be so much more weird and awkward and probably not really make sense, because if they're far enough away from whatever the regular smoking rule is. I actually found myself driving down the highway, slight diversion, driving down the highway the other day to go get a quote on my window tinting, which I'm finally getting around to now that the weather is warming up. And I was going down US 131, which is north-south, the major highway that goes through here. And parts of it are a shithole. It is a shithole. It is, in every sense of everything that Trump tried to say a shithole was, it's a shithole. It's brown and dirty and littered with pockmarks and potholes. And it is part of the roadway that I saw probably 15 years ago that made me look at this city and go, ugh, who'd want to live there? And then I realized, oh, you can't judge it by this highway.
Yeah.
I was flying down the road and all of a sudden, like, good God, whoever that is, I do not want to be near them in traffic. So then like an hour later, I come back. It's the same spot, same aroma. So all of a sudden I changed mental conversations with myself. Like, it wasn't a car. It's a facility. So something at some location, it was like living down the street from a coffee roaster, except weed. I have no idea what it was. I don't know. I have no clue, but it wasn't.
I'll be honest. Like, I'm hypersensitive to the smell because I hate the smell. I hate the smell of weed so damn much. Some people get really upset about the smell of my pipe tobacco or cigarettes or my cigars or any of the other tobacco that I smoke, and I can appreciate that, and I empathize, because I'm like, you know what? A lot of people have told me that they're offended by that. To me, the smell of weed makes me like it's so bad. It hurts my nose.
That's funny.
I hate the smell of weed so much.
I don't really care, but I've definitely realized, like, there are so many versions of it that people can partake in. And sometimes I look around and think, why? Like, why go through the trouble of vaping or smoking when there's a perfectly legitimate chocolate bar in that store down the street?
Well, I'll tell you, the vaping thing, at least in the restaurant industry, is, well, I live in a state where it's not legal, and it's a hell of a lot easier to hide.
That's true. That's fair. Yeah.
Cannabis oil in a vape. Anyway, but no, I mean, it's there's different ways of handling situations
You're absolutely right.
that belong to peacekeeping. Ideally, a peacekeeper doesn't even have a gun. Maybe they have a nightstick and mace and a taser for self-defense, but they shouldn't have a gun. If they're in a situation where they need a gun, then the conversation of how this proceeds has to change, right?
But you know what they're going to say, David? The pearl clutchers, the people that believe cards like this, they're going to say, you can't have cops without guns because all the criminals are so well armed.
Okay, so I mean, this is my problem with the whole. If you ban guns, the only people who will have guns are criminals. We passed seatbelt laws. The only people who don't wear their seatbelt in their car
in New Hampshire
are criminals.
Right.
We passed laws about murder, right? The only people who commit murder are, by definition, criminals. We passed laws about, I don't know, wage theft. If you steal your employees' wages, you are a criminal. I mean, like, it goes on and on and on.
No, you're stretching it there.
Those
are celebrated heroes in the Republican America. They're not criminals. They're revered.
Fucking hell. I mean, like, that's the point. Like,
right.
You know what? The argument that you have is such circular logic that it doesn't make one damn bit of sense.
It always
yes, criminals may have guns. More than likely, they won't. I mean, the number of armed persons arrested versus unarmed persons arrested is catastrophic, right?
And we've built it up to be such a mythology that the cops believe it to such an extent that they'll execute a guy in Nashville standing in the middle of a highway after keeping the mental health people away from it for half an hour. I mean,
right? I mean,
the whole thing is just jacked.
And the sad thing is it's a mythology. You know, there's a guy you and I both watch on YouTube because we really enjoy it. Guy runs a YouTube channel called How to Drink. And I love his shit. I love everything that he does. He gives me the best ideas for drink recipes. We don't do cocktails on this show. If we ever do, we're just going to like fucking
crib from him.
We're gonna have to drive up to Jersey Shore, bang on his door, and be like, "You have to come on our show because we're gonna have to drink all your fucking cocktails at once." And it's just
either that or the unemployed wine guy. Those two guys are.
Oh yeah, I love that guy too. Oh my god!
If you haven't checked out either of those, unemployed wine guy and How to Drink are both very good. By the way, Olivia makes a great point. That argument is so fucking stupid. And she points out like creating the consequence of action, not preventing it from happening. And that figures into this crime discussion that I found myself front and center for in Nextdoor and Facebook.
I'm going to short circuit you just real fast about the gun thing. Because I mean, it's one of my pet peeves about why cops get, well, he could have had a gun. We had a really good system actually for a long time in America, which was if you're inside city limits, you know what you don't get to lay hands on? A gun. If you walked into Dodge City, home of shootouts and all this other shit, or Tombstone, Arizona. Why did why did the shootout at the OK Corral happen? It happened because the cops were there to make sure that they weren't there with their guns. Wyatt Earp and the other marshals were there to disarm the people who were illegally inside city limits with guns. That's why the shootout at the OK Corral happened. At most cities, New York, every other city basically said, no, you can't have a fucking pistol. You can't have a fucking shotgun. No, right. You can't have a fucking pea shooter. If you want to lock something up in your house and then take it out of the city to use it, sure. Why not? New York had a whole thing about no.
Right.
And it actually got, ironically, it got worse after the draft riots. And here's why. This is a funny story. So it wasn't that the draft rioters had guns. That wasn't the problem. The problem was everyone else with guns shooting at shit and making shit more impossible to fucking control. Like, well, I was defending my home. From home!
Right.
Why the fuck is Patty McPotato Eater wanting to bust into your one-room flat in fucking Flatbush, dude? He ain't. You just wanted
Ignorance,
to shoot your
paranoia,
gun.
greed. I mean, there's so much about the human condition that plays out in the worst ways in the way that we structure a lot of shit in America. And policing is a prime example of it. We are running right up to the time, folks.
We are.
It's going to be about that time. We could talk about this. This is one of our mutual passionate topics. We could talk about this one all fucking year. But instead, we would like to thank you for tuning in. We're not like the mash that bell people, but we would love for you to subscribe. We would love for you to like.
However. You should do that.
Feel free. We would also love for you to share. So feel free to pass along the love. We hope that even in our most cynical and foul-mouthed moments, you find us amusing or enduring or endearing or endurable. And
Or
of
infuriating
course,
in a special way.
come for the beer, if nothing else. But we're going to hop out of here and go on with the evening. David's going to drink more beers. I'm likely to go blow some shit up on a PlayStation nearby. And we want to thank everybody for tuning in. And of course, there is one more thing we do when we sign off these days, and that is Putin Kuyo, Slava Ukraini. And hopefully every day we'll see improvement for all of that news. And to that end, we tell you good night.
Good evening.
And good luck.
Good luck.